All right, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Good Life Small Business Podcast, and I am pleased to be joined by Erika Godfrey, who is the owner of Hawthorne Jewelry here. Hawthorne Jewelry, hard to say.
It is kind of hard to say.
Here in downtown Kearney, and so, Erika, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me. This is exciting to be here.
Yeah, great.
Really pleased.
Let's get into it a little bit and just learn more about you. What books are you reading or listening to right now?
Well, I just finished one book that was called Rejection Proof.
Okay.
The author's name I will probably pronounce wrong, but it's Zhu Zhang, I think. It was a really interesting read about a guy that wanted something, didn't work out professionally for him. So he set off on a quest for 100 days of trying to see what he could do to get rejected, so he would kind of numb himself to that.
Okay.
So he wasn't afraid to do it later on. So that one was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Really neat philosophy behind that. The one I'm reading right now is by Andy Andrews. It's called The 7 Decisions, just about kind of self-accountability and how to stay really focused on your goals and be the best type of person you can be.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, is that a New Year's book that you started reading?
Actually, it's a really fast read. Yeah.
Is it?
It talks about just 7 different principles. He calls them decisions, but just different ways just to be happy, to stay the course, once you make a decision, you focus on that decision instead of waffling back and forth.
Sure.
Just basic things that you think about and probably do in your life, but it just makes you more aware of what's going on inside yourself, inside your mind. So I think it's been a great read for me, though, after the holidays, because everybody gets caught up in whether it's work for me in retail, but also with families and just the different things that are always going on during the holidays.
Sure.
So.
Now, are you a reader or do you listen?
I'm a reader, totally a reader. Yep. Okay. I am hands-on as far as the reading goes. I just feel like I need that quiet space. I do listen to some podcasts, but again, they're mostly for entertainment. Marketing, certainly there's some marketing things out there. Tim Ferriss show is kind of fun to listen to. Yeah. So, but I'm the type of person, if I hear it and I'm not participating in it, it's kind of harder for it to sink in for me.
Sure. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm actually reading the 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss right now. So.
Yep, that's a really great philosophy too. I mean, there's.
Yeah, I think that there's pieces that are great, and I think that there's some things that, for me, I'm still kind of trying to wrap my head around how they would be possible.
Right. But I think that's the same thing with any type of seminar that you go to.
Sure.
The goal is to not necessarily buy into it 110%, but to take back pieces that are workable and to start implementing them as soon as possible into your lifestyle, into what works for business or what works for you personally. Just to take a few things and just start building on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So podcasts, what are you listening to right now?
For podcasts, probably the Tim Ferriss. I just kind of flip around to podcasts. Again, mostly for entertainment.
Yeah.
For me. Yeah. I try to read probably daily, I would say. I think it's really important. I think that there's just some really great things out there. But again, it's a lot of my stuff is jewelry industry related, marketing, how to be a better manager. That's always a challenge for me.
Sure, yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. Very cool. Tim Ferriss was just on one podcast I've been listening to, is How I Built This.
I've listened to that,
and he was just on just a couple episodes ago, and that was a really interesting one.
Yeah.
It was really good.
Yeah, he's something to listen to.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Great. So let's just get into it. Tell us a bit more about you, Hawthorne Jewelry, and just kind of tell us the journey. I know this is a family-owned business, but just kind of tell us about that dynamic and lead us through your journey of being a small business owner.
It's kind of a weird, convoluted journey because it's as much a living, breathing part of my life, my family's life. But for me, I thought the furthest away from Kearney, Nebraska is where I wanted to be when I was young. And I just throughout life, there's things that, you've made choices as a child, as a young adult, and I don't regret any choice I've ever made, but just different things that led me to different places. And I remember one day I was living in Omaha, just recently had been married, and my dad called me on the phone before cell phones were a big thing.
Yeah.
And he said he was done working at the store. He wanted to retire, and I was like, okay. And so we had a little conversation. Just to give you a little history, my grandparents were in the business. My grandpa worked for his brothers. When they decided to open the store, they bought it from a gentleman named J.D. Hawthorne. So it had been in that family for a good 70 years, and it's been in my family for just over 72 years now,
Okay.
I think. So when my dad, he was an only child, so he was kind of not forced into the business, but also forced into the business.
Right.
Back then, he grew up sleeping on the floor in the back room, as a child, because
Wow.
both of my grandparents, my grandpa and my grandma, worked together in the store. My grandma was a really, really energetic.
In this same location.
Actually, we were one door south of where we are now.
Okay. All right.
And then even before that, they had to move the store out into the middle of the street, back when there was not cars. But it was a freestanding building there for a little
Okay.
bit, and then they came back over here. And then in the early 80s, my dad was able to buy the building that we're in now.
Got it.
So we really haven't moved out of downtown Kearney at all.
Got it.
Nor have we moved really the position from where we were.
Sure.
So a lot of history. We're 142 years old right
Yeah.
now. 143 years old right now.
Yeah.
So when my dad called and said he wanted to retire, my dad is a super vivacious type of person also, but he just kind of had gotten tired of the daily grind, which
Sure.
small business is daily grind.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember hanging up the phone, and I walked away, and I turned around and I picked up the phone and I said, "You can't sell the store. I got to come home." And we did. We fought back and forth for about 2 years. Certainly there's a lot of issues about being a small business owner that, as a parent now, that I understand that I'm on his side of the fence now, I would also caution my children.
Sure.
But on the other hand, there's so much reward that I tell everybody I am not employable anywhere else, I'm afraid. So I hope that this really works out 25 years later.
Yeah.
I really hope that when I'm 85 years old, I'm still coming into the store, whether or not it's to do just some menial task. My grandpa was in his mid-80s, and we just kept kind of little jobs for him to do. And, it just becomes a part of you. So, I went to school for French and international finance. I was going to go to a grad school in Arizona. Thought I'd live overseas. Pretty sure I'm supposed to be somewhere on the Mediterranean. If I could take all of Kearney, Nebraska with me,
Right.
I would do that. But so I was in banking for a while, and that's what I thought I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And when he told me he was going to sell, it didn't feel right. I felt like that is just such a part of my life. I grew up, every dinner conversation revolved around what went on at the store.
Mm-hmm.
My grandparents, when they were alive, who they knew, or somebody was in the store, somebody needed to call us in the middle of the evening and needed a gift for somebody, it was just a part of our lives.
Sure. So did you have to, obviously it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you came back because of the family history that was involved in this
totally.
business. But did you have to, from your trade, did you have to learn to love that a little bit?
No, I didn't have to learn to love it. I'm kind of a passionate person anyhow, and I love what I do. I had to learn from ground zero, and my dad, you're a father, you tell your kids they can be whatever they want to be, and my dad was really good because we're so much alike that we also butt heads a lot. And so my first day on the job, pretty much he said, "Here's the keys, have a nice life," and he walked out the door. And I remember calling him one day and saying that, sales reps in the store, how much do I buy? And the numbers looked so staggering to me. And I just thought, I don't know how to do this. I didn't go to school for business.
Sure.
I didn't have any experience. And so He said, you do what you need to do. And I said, I don't know what that means. He says, you're going to find out. And so I learned a lot of lessons the hard way, but I think experience is the best educator. You can have a plaque on the wall, diplomas of all kinds, which I also think is very important.
Right.
But experience, like none other, will teach you what you need to know, and it'll also, I think, empower you to continue to learn. Yeah. And that's what's so great about my business. I think any small business is that it's constantly changing. There is nothing that stays the same, and so you don't have the opportunity to become stagnant. I certainly had to learn. So my grandpa did the books when I first started. Okay. There was no computer system when I started. And there wasn't for many years, but he was the type of person that didn't think that a female should be doing this kind of work, and he didn't want to teach me. So I remember I'd open everything up and say, Grandpa, I'll mail this for you. I'd tear it open, I'd photocopy it, and I taught myself how to do all the withholding reports. I still to this day do not like to do bookwork, but I had to teach myself how to do it. Made some mistakes along the way, and but again, we never had the opportunity to be stagnant, and there's always room for growth. Sure. Whether you're seeing a number not change as fast as you want it to change, or if you're not innovative in a particular part of industry or your business that you want to be innovating in, there's the opportunity there. It's just finding the time sometimes to do it. So. Sure. So once I kind of had that on my belt, then I went on and did my Gemological Institute studies and got my gemologist degree and things like that were more jewelry related.
Got it.
So.
And how old were you when you came back to run the business?
Oh my gosh. 24 maybe? Wow. Yeah. I know, I was just a baby when I think about it, and I was so green. I mean, I have so many stories of things that I had no idea. Yeah. And I was quiet and timid and just strictly business. And, again, that's experience teaches you so much. Sure. It teaches you to learn to love what you do. Yeah. And you can have fun doing it.
So it was basically like starting a small business, but with a family business that had been around for years and years.
Yeah, and years. I was so fortunate. We had such a strong base of customers. We have loyalty. I mean, I am in a business that people need to be able to trust what we do. We stand on integrity. We stand on our word. And we don't sell anything anybody needs. You don't need a ring to get married. You don't need a watch certainly anymore to tell time. There's nothing in my store that is a necessity. So everything that I do tells a story. Sure. So I have the opportunity to be involved in so many special moments for people.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool. So what's your favorite part about being a small business owner?
I don't know if I have one favorite part. I have so many favorite parts. My favorite part is getting to make the decisions, getting to make my own mistakes and getting to clean those up. Yeah. And decide where do you go next. I think having the power to be able to say, I like this or I don't like that, and not have to be censored in a sense, I guess, or kept in a box. Sure. I don't know. I was fortunate with my family too, that I've always had the support of them to say, I think this is great. I think, or maybe you should think about what you're doing next. Right. So, and my brother works with me. Yep. So we have so much more than just business that goes on here. Yeah. Yeah. Did you bring your brother back to be part of the business? Did you talk him into coming, or was he ready to? I think he was at a point in his life, he was really young, that school wasn't quite right for him, and he tried some things and didn't quite know. And so this fell in really well because my dad did all of our bench work, which means stone setting, ring sizings, all different kinds of repairs, things like that. And he was, again, at a point where he had stepped back, and I wanted somebody. I certainly don't have to have somebody in the store to be able to do a ring sizing. We could send it off to Timbuktu, but I want to be full service. Sure. Because that's my main drive I want to be able to be everything to my customer. I want to be their personal jeweler.
Yeah.
So the big part of that is having somebody here that's capable of doing that. I didn't have the desire to do that much. I don't think I can't cook. I can't work with little tiny things either. So he's great at what he does. So I think we have a really good working relationship that way, where he has his own little world to be creative. It's very solitary because none of us can help him do what he does.
Right.
We can tell him, we need this done today. And I can say, how are you coming on something, how are you coming along, or do you need me to order something? But I cannot begin to do what he does.
Right.
So I have expectations that he has to come up and help us. So he's pulled in a number of ways, but his main job is essential to our business.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Very cool. So you may have not had any idea what you were getting into. That leads me to my next question. But is this what you thought it would be when you moved back?
And so much more.
Yeah.
No, I had no idea. I don't think I even gave it I don't think I gave it a second thought. I had no expectations going in, as far as, what if this doesn't work? What if I don't have money for this? What if when I came in, I took a very low pay, just because I didn't know how to balance the dollars that were coming in and going out so quickly. And it was really scary for me. I had no expectations whatsoever. I didn't know anything except that I didn't want the doors to close.
Sure.
And that to me was, and I still don't want the doors to close.
Right.
I think I don't mind getting up on a Saturday morning and having to come in. Sometimes I wish I could have a Saturday off, and I do, but then I think, geez, what am I going to do? I got to go to work.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think about how I want to phrase this question. It seems like someone that is good at a certain trade, they go out on their own. I'm an insurance agent, so I can write insurance policies. Or if there's someone that is working for someone and they do flooring or drywall, or they, whatever the business is, they go out and in that trade, they're really good at that trade, and they don't realize that you have to kind of separate yourself from that at times and be a small business owner.
Absolutely.
But it seems like you came into this more from the small business owner standpoint and learned how to be a gemologist.
Because, okay, so I don't know if I'm going to take this down the right path that you're wanting to go on, but nobody goes to school and says, I want to be a jeweler when I grow up. It just doesn't happen. It's not on any list. It's just not there. Right. I certainly didn't think that that's what I would be doing. But again, because it was, I think, a family business, and it was so ingrained with my family, because it wasn't just my dad. After my grandma passed away, my mom came down here and she helped out. My grandparents were here. My great uncles were involved in the business. I mean, it was so much part of our family that I think, to me, a diamond or a ruby or an opal, there was a story behind it, and I don't feel like it was just stuff. Yeah. Which maybe with small business, you also have to remember not to fall in love with what we do, because at the end of the day, it is a product. We're here to make money. Sure. Everybody needs to have a way to survive and live their life, and a small business should make you money. Sure. To me, that's probably not the most important factor. And I wish I would have had some business classes to teach me that going into it. But yeah, becoming a jeweler, which I am not, I'm a gemologist. There's a big difference. My brother's the jeweler. Okay. But to come into that, no, I had no interest. I tried working down at the store when I was maybe 16. And I remember selling a pearl ring, and the guy gave me $200 in cash, and I was shaking. Like, that was so much money. Right. And I remember my dad, like, you're 15 minutes late. And I thought, there's no way I'm ever going to work down here. And I worked maybe 2 weeks, and out the door I went. Yeah. And never had any inclination that might be what my life would be. Yeah. So, I don't know.
Very cool. So, what is one thing that you wish you were better at when it came to running your business?
So many things. Probably the most important is management. I am a big picture person. So managing people is really difficult for me because I just want everybody to do their thing. And I am kind of an open door type of person where if I'm doing one thing and somebody asks me about it, they have access to it. But to focus on priorities, it's really difficult for me because I have a job where a customer can come in and I have to stop what I'm doing, and that takes me away from whatever project I'm working on for an hour or two or longer. And then in the meantime, 4 other people come in, and then that project gets pushed to the side. And so that's probably my biggest challenge, is just managing responsibility and tasks, and then making sure that my employees have guidance to know and to feel confident. I'm always looking at ways to improve that. I think that, my biggest concern is that everybody is valued. And sometimes that gets lost in the shuffle, I do believe, just because we do get busy and there's always something going on.
Yeah. And I think that from a training standpoint, when you go out on your own, and if you start and you're on your own and you don't have employees, and then you get to where things just get too busy and you have to hire an employee, it's very important to realize the time that is needed to train someone.
Yep. And
the time that you have to invest up front, and you have to be willing to do that. If they're going to be any good at what you want them to do, whatever that trait is, you've got to invest the time with them up front. And I'm that's completely hypocritical for me to say, because I'm not good at training. That's
I just had this conversation with one of my employees today, and we're looking like, okay, we know that we need a spot for somebody to fill, but A, you want to fill it with the right person.
Sure.
And B, you need to have that time. And she's really good at wanting to take the time and sit down with somebody. And she says, I know that's not where your priority lies, but it is something. And we had that same exact conversation. It is so hard to devote. When I worked at a bank when I was in college, my first boss there, she said, Erika, I was a manager or backup manager or whatever for one of the drive-ins. And she said, Erika, you need to learn to delegate. And I said, I can't, because I can do it right and I can do it fast.
Yeah.
And that's exactly kind of how I operate. And that's a huge hurdle to have to crawl over. Sometimes I feel like I'm just like over the top, and then I'm like, nope, I fell back down. It's really hard for me.
Yeah. And you realize after a while, okay, this person, they need help with this, or they're more of a visual learner, whatever it may be, or they're more hands off, where here's what I need you to do, and they'll figure out how to do it. Where you just kind of have to figure out, but it is so important to invest that time up front if you want them to be successful, and you want bringing someone on to accomplish what you're trying to do, which is free up your time so that you can do whatever else you need to do.
And I think that that's a great way to look at small business, because when I started, I never thought down the road, am I going to want to extricate myself from the business, and what do I need to do to get to that point? So somebody else can come in and learn to take over. I can work part-time. That is something that every small business owner really needs to think about from the young stage of owning a business, because some time passes and you don't realize how much time has passed. And so it is really difficult to make sure. And in a small business, the beauty of that is because we're so much hands-on. I mean, you're hands-on with what you're doing. I'm hands-on. So we have our hands in everything. And you start to work so closely with the people that you do have on board. I think you can establish really great, tight, close-knit relationships that way. And I think that's really important to making something function well, as long as the communication is there. But again, when you get to that point, you also have to, as a business owner, it's so important to make sure that you have the vision to say, okay, what are my long-term plans? What are those long-range wants and desires? And what are the long-range needs? How do I get to that point? And I think that sometimes in that day-to-day shuffle of, I gotta get these bills paid, I gotta unclog the toilet, and I forgot I had to buy paper for the printer.
Right.
You get so caught up in all those daily things that people don't understand, it's everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a great point.
Yeah. Are you better at delegating now?
No.
No.
No. I'm getting there. I think I do okay. I definitely am not as shy as I used to be as far as like putting my voice out there, but it's still, I have a long ways to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you always got to be working on something.
Yeah.
All of us do. So let's talk a little bit about, we're coming up on 10 months now of dealing with COVID-19 and the pandemic. We talk on this show a lot about the positive that small businesses have been able to achieve by making positive steps in their business. So just talk about what the pandemic was like for you, and also talk about something that you have implemented or a service, the new service you've provided, or just a different outlook that you have with your business that you'll carry forward because of COVID-19, but maybe wouldn't have made that change if it hadn't been for all the changes we had to make.
That is a huge topic. And I think that COVID, when I looked back at the year, somebody said, this has been an awful year. And I thought, you know what? It hasn't been. It has been an amazing year. Knock on wood, I have been healthy. My family has been healthy.
Sure.
My friends have been healthy. That being said, I know that that's not the case with so many people.
Right.
But when I look at what COVID has taught us, and again, we have so much information that we didn't have prior to COVID.
Sure.
I was scared to no ends. I mean, I would seriously I would be in the shower and my hair would fall out. I didn't know how I was going to pay my employees. I didn't know if we were going to have a roof over our head. You just didn't know when it first started.
Sure.
And even before that, I was like, oh, it's not a big deal. And then I was like, oh, this is a big deal. Right. We have to, I waffled, and I'm like, you can't do that. You make a decision and you move forward. Mm-hmm. So our decision was to keep my staff. I did for whatever reason, it worked out that my part-time staff just kind of were high school kids, and just everything kind of fizzled away that way. Mm-hmm. But I was able to keep my full-timers. We were able to get PPP. I had some thought processes on whether I should or shouldn't.
Right.
But we found different jobs. For a while, we were only working in the store 12 hours a week, and I had split it so there's only 2 of us here. But we had so much opportunity during those serious months of COVID. Yes, sales stunk. I can't even be pleasant about it. Right. There is just nothing fun about it. But in the meantime, we found different jobs. One job was we took the time, which I never would have taken. We pulled down wallpaper. We put in different desks and computer systems. So something that I thought was going to be a really simple task that was going to maybe be 5,000 morphed into like 30. Yeah. So, but it was all worth it. The PPP kept us stable, where I didn't have to worry about my employees so much. Because as a business owner, you don't worry just about yourself. Yeah. You don't worry just about your business. You worry about, gosh, do I close those doors? If I close my doors, are people going to remember that I'm even here when I open again? What do? Do you stop advertising? Do you just stop business? You can't. Mm-hmm. So much has changed. One of the things that we did, that we're still doing because COVID opened up these doors for us, is that we do Zoom meetings with customers. We do live Facebooks, meetings with them, FaceTime videos, things like that. Mm-hmm. We can offer curbside assistance. We can offer online payment solutions, where we can send a link for credit card payment to be made. So things, I think, have made it much easier for a customer to do business with us. And that's always my goal. My goal is, how do I best service my client?
Sure.
This is another way to do that, and we'll continue to do that. So It's been hugely, the doors that have opened because of COVID, sadly, I wish we didn't have to learn about it that way. But if I want to say this has been an awful year, it hasn't been an awful year. We have learned so much. We're still here. We had a strong end of the year that was thrilling. I mean, I don't have any other word for it. I didn't know what to expect. I'm thrilled beyond expectation. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I think that the one time in my life I've said I'm so fortunate that I've been conservative my whole life. I'm so fortunate that we live in the middle of the country.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Right. And I think it's important to, for anyone who's starting a small business, at the beginning, a lot of times you are just scrapping to make whatever kind of money you can, and you are just doing whatever you can to keep the lights on and the bills paid with whatever money you got in the bank account. But it's important to be able to, and even before you open the doors, to have money set aside, because nobody saw this coming.
Right.
Nobody saw, businesses being shut down and things like that. So it's important to have that rainy day fund for things that you think will never happen, because they can happen.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Small business is not for the faint of heart. Small business, we don't do small business. Anyhow, I don't. And a number of people that I know that I'm close friends with also are not in small business because they're going to make a killing.
Right.
I mean, there are all different things that drive people. And bringing home a big paycheck might be a driving force for a lot of people. For me, that's not the case. Mm-hmm. I like a lot of things, but I also like having the ability to express myself and not have to worry about sending a memo to somebody or, making sure that I have approved time off. I mean, I have to approve that time off mentally and make sure that it works, but I'm the one in charge. And I think that just by having that rainy day fund, I remember days where I'd have to call my dad up and ask for money. I got to pay the electric bill. How do I do this? And, I was fortunate in that instance. I came into a business that was strong, and that, again, I had support of the person behind me. Not just that it was a family member, but I had a resource to go to. I had a resource within my industry. The one thing that I think with any industry is so important is having those resources, mentors that can help you and guide you and say, this is what works for me, because we're all here to be better at the end of the day. And competition makes us all stronger, but competition is also where you find your best resource, I think,
Absolutely.
too.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you could go back to Omaha that day, you talked to your dad on the phone and called him back and said that you were coming to Kearney. If you could go back to that moment, what piece of advice would you give yourself in that moment? Or would you just let things go as they have when you moved back here to Kearney?
I'd like to say, ideally, I would like to say, get here faster. Don't waste those 2 years. But on the other hand, there's two things. I wish he would have, because I know he would have stayed in the business longer for me. I wish I would have gone and worked at a different jewelry store to get some information that way, to understand how another business operates. And I also wish I would have made a master plan of so many things, but the master plan can change. It can morph into something different. But again, short term, midterm, long term, and way out there is so important. I love that I got to learn by experience. I'm glad that I had my dad to call on and say, this is what worked for me. Why aren't you doing this? Or this is great that you're doing this. Have you considered adding XYZ?
Sure.
Because not only was he my boss, in a sense, he was also my dad.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I would I have changed much? Nope, I probably wouldn't have.
Yeah. I
might have said go on vacation once before you come to work too.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're getting yourself into. So someone comes to you, one of your daughters comes to you and they say, I want to start a small business. What advice would you give to them?
I would tell them, go for it. I don't think the advice, I think everybody needs support. Like, what kind of resources do you have? What type of business do you want to start? What kind of resources are within that industry that you can rely on? Are there, for me, a buying organization that I'm involved in, or a state, what I had before, which I don't unfortunately have now, is a state association. Who are the people that you can call on to help guide you that have that experience. But yeah, I just say run with it. If you've got a dream, follow it. If you have a desire and the passion, because you have to have that, you have to get up every day and say, I love what I do. And if I don't love what I do, why am I not? Find a reason to get up. And I think that if they want to start a small business, I say go for it. Let's figure it out. Let's see where you need to go. I think everybody's capable of doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much that, getting started is hard, but you eventually just have to decide that you're going to do it. And once you do make that decision to do it, you have to realize that there's going to be hard days, and you have to find the motivation, and even some days the love of what you're doing to go in to work or go to the job site or whatever you're doing that's going to make it, that's going to keep it where you can sustain it, keep going, because not every day's great.
Nope, not every day's great, nor should it be.
No.
I mean, if it was great, how boring would we be?
Right.
I mean, it would just be, why?
Yeah.
So the book that I'm reading right now, the chapter that I'm on is the last chapter. It talks about perseverance. Once you set your goal and once you have your focus, you have to answer, what does the word success mean to you?
Yeah.
I think that's a really important question to ask yourself. What is the most important decision you've ever made in your life? What's the worst decision you've ever made in your life? And how do those affect your choices that you make now? But one of my favorite quotes is, once I make a decision, I never look back. I never go back. You always have to step forward. And so persevering without somebody saying, oh, you've tried it, it's not working for you, stop what you're doing. It's okay, you tried hard enough.
Right.
There is no such thing. And in my vocabulary, I would say the word try doesn't exist. You either do it or you don't. And as long as you're doing it, even if it changes forms, but if you give it all you've got, you can't do anything but succeed.
Yeah.
Might not be the path that you thought you were going to go down, but that's the beauty of age. In my case, I can look back and say, okay, I see how all of these life choices actually led me to where my passion is.
Sure.
And I think that that's the most important thing. I didn't know. I remember sitting in an advisor's office when I was 18 years old. What do you want to do? I don't know. I don't think you have to know.
No.
And I think that that's the beauty of it. As long as you have a desire to move, to learn, to absorb what's around you. And I think you have to have, certainly for a small business, you have to have a desire to motivate the people around you.
Sure.
Whether it's a person on the street, whether it's somebody you're working next to, whether it's a family member, you have to also have that empathy and the desire to help them succeed. And I think that's what makes everybody stronger at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Great advice. So how can we find out more about Hawthorne Jewelry?
Well, there's a number of ways. My preferred way is that you come and talk to me, just because that's the way I am. But you can find us on our website, www.hawthornejewelry.com. Okay. Facebook, you can message us. If you text our store number, it comes straight to my cell phone. So that's a great way to get in touch with us. And then we're open 6 days a week right now. So
awesome.
Yeah.
And if someone wants to do a Zoom meeting, how could they get a hold of you to kind of get that set up?
Yeah. So again, it's just basic. If you're not comfortable right now coming into the store, a phone call works, an email works. It doesn't matter, but we can sure send a link for the Zoom. Some people don't want to use Zoom. We've used Skype. Okay. I've used Google Meets, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
Facebook, FaceTime. We've done that. I've used WhatsApp video. Okay. We can do anything. We'll make it easy. That's our job, is to figure it out for you.
Got it. Awesome.
Yeah.
Erika, thanks so much. This was awesome. I really appreciate it. Yeah.